Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have something really interesting and finally we're going to talk about the EK-AIO. Specifically, this will be a 360 D-RGB model which has 3 D-RGB fans and a D-RGB pump top and amazing design. So stay tuned and check out all the details. As I stated at the beginning, today's video is going to be based on the EK-AIO, specifically 360 model, which definitely is something, well, it's already a few months on the market, but definitely something interesting for you guys that are still afraid of a custom loop from EK, even though you could always go with the soft tubing. But this is something that they designed which brings something interesting to the table. And what's so interesting about it? First of all, you get nice 3 120mm fans which are D-RGB, so you connect them with 3-pin 5V ARGB connector directly to a motherboard or to a splitter or anything else, and adjust them with your motherboard software. Also, the pump has D-RGB as well, so you just connect all of them together. And when we're talking about the pump, it's actually, they stated, a sturdy pump which ensures sufficient coolant flow through dense copper thin structure, delivering optimal performance for its class of AIO products on the market. Of course, we're going to do a comparison to the other 360 and even 280 radiators, well, basically AIOs. Now, for the fans, you have something similar but then yet different, because EK Water S120ER D-RGB fans have a high static pressure cooling possibilities, and they're quite interesting just by the looks. I'm already used to their standard design which I used for my custom loops, but these are a bit of a different models. And finally we have the radiator, which is 27mm thick high-grade aluminium, which ensures compatibility with almost every single ATX case on the market. Altogether, thickness with the fans and the radiator is 53mm, and this will definitely be possible to place in almost every case. Now, when it comes to compatibility, it is compatible with all Intel sockets, so 115X and 20XX, and of course the AMD socket AM4. Basically, I already ran the tests with the 10700K, which come out really interesting because in AIDA 64 stress testing it on maximum performance. So I placed the CPU, FPU, system memory, cache memory, GPU and the storage as well at the same time. The temperature at one point touched 67, but it stayed stable at 64, 65 Celsius degrees. Now, comparing it to some other coolers on the market, for instance, these are 240mm radiators, which, for instance, Antec Neptune 240, which gets 67, Deepcool Castle 240 EX 69. Then let's go with something bigger. For instance, Lian Li Galahad 360, 65 Celsius degrees. Fractal Design Celsius Plus S28 Prisma 65 Celsius degrees. NZXT Kraken Z73 scored 63 degrees. Corsair Hydro H150i Pro RGB 65 Celsius S36 from Fractal Design 66. Then we also have Arctic Liquid Freezer 280 69, and what's there left to say? I mean, it really competes with every other AIO on the market. The only one that got the advantage is the Kraken Z73, and 64 Celsius degrees on 10700K is really outstanding. Now, not to make any difference from other AIOs, they all had the front meshed part just to get enough air and still achieve the same performance as in any other benchmarks. Now, testing it in AIDA 64, I think that's quite reliable to get the temperatures. Now, the one thing that I notice is that the EK-AIO has a different position of the tubes going out from the pump and the block, so it's kind of, I would say, different from the standard AIO that you're used to having symmetrical pipe position or fitting position on the pump, and also really long pipes. Now I'm really surprised that EK actually understood that people might be using their AIO in much bigger cases, which kind of is alright, having the pipe length a bit longer with 400 millimeters of length, which is quite alright. Now, the mounting possibilities for the EK block is fairly simple. You place the backside backplate on your motherboard, you put 4 locking nuts and screw it from the front side, place them on the backplate, and after that placing the water block on the CPU. Of course, don't forget the thermal paste, but when we're talking, I'll just skip the mounting for a second. You get pre-applied thermal paste on your block, and this is quite common because almost all AIOs either get it pre-applied, well, like 90%, and the other 10% you get the thermal paste separately in a box or in a tube or anything else. EK did something different, and this is really cool and appreciated, I have to admit, because they did place an additional thermal paste inside your accessory box. So having pre-applied thermal paste on your block and additional thermal paste tube inside your box of accessories, you can change the thermal paste without thinking, oh, I have to buy a new thermal paste when a year and a half you need to, or a year you have to change the thermal paste just because you want to keep everything cool. So yeah, I think that is really cool and thoughtful from the EK guys, adding more thermal paste just in case. Now let's continue on the mounting part. When placing the backplate, you have to put 4 locking screws to lock the backplate to your motherboard. After that, you have to place on your CPU block different bracket, depending, are you going with the AMD or are you going with the Intel. This is basically for Intel configuration, so you're placing the backplate at the back, placing the 4 locking screws, placing the water block, and then with the springs, 4 springs and 4 locking screws, you tie the CPU block on. If you're placing the EK-AIO on the AMD processor, you just use the original backplate from the AMD motherboard. You use the locking screws the same way that you use for your Intel socket, and just change the bracket that goes around the pump. For the Intel 20XX, basically you just place the locking screws on the motherboard, since that socket has already screws attached to the motherboard, and that's it. Everything else is the same. Springs on the screws after you place the block, and then you just place the locking nuts and tie them in diagonal position, just because you need to get the exact momentum and the exact pressure while placing, otherwise the spring will most likely just pop the CPU block off or something might break. So you do need to be careful when you're doing this. I'm pretty satisfied with the temperatures, basically going on the second position of all the AIOs that I tested, and definitely really cool when it comes to a 360 radiator cooling. This way I would give a PC Crazy Performance badge for the 360 radiator, just because it does impress with the performance, how it lowers the temperature on 10700K in quite a warm room. Basically, I think it's 26 in this room currently, even though I'm wearing a long sleeve vest, but you know, it's still a bit warmer inside this room. So guys, yeah, thank you for watching. This was a video based for the EK-AIO 360 D-RGB liquid cooling system with 3 ARGB fans, 120 millimeters, of course, and the ARGB CPU block top. It really does shine nicely, and the subtle EK logo as it is on all of their products. So guys, yeah, I'm placing the links below where to buy it, of course, on their EK Water Blocks website, so you can check out the price of it. Or maybe you could go with their 240 or 120, and they also released EK-AIO Elite 360 D-RGB with a different pump top. So guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment below if you have any thoughts about it, and of course don't forget to subscribe for future content. Thank you and bye bye.